Poverty isn't just about lacking money, it's a system that keeps some people ahead and others behind. The wealth gap shapes every part of life, but understanding it is the first step to changing the story. Instead of just admiring the problem, let's focus on real solutions and practical steps forward. Change starts with hope, action, and the belief that your circumstances don't define your destiny. Poverty is full of invisible barriers like lack of opportunity, education, and fair access that aren't personal failings, but systemic obstacles. Recognizing these walls is the first move toward finding cracks and pushing through. Scarcity traps your mind in survival mode, making it hard to plan for the future. Breaking free means creating space to breathe, think, and dream beyond today's struggles. Generations of injustice created today's wealth gap, and overcoming it means healing, changing systems, and building a new legacy. The past is heavy, but together we can choose a different future. Let's talk about budget. A budget isn't a cage, it's a map, the GPS for your money. It shows you where your money is going so you can tell it where you want it to go. For 1 month, track every dollar. At the end of the month, you'll have a clear picture. Once you have your map, you can start making choices. That's a strategic move. A budget gives you permission to say no to some things so you can say yes to the things that truly matter. Suddenly, your money is working for you, not against you. It's about doing more with what you have. Your most valuable possession isn't your phone, your car, or anything you can hold. It's your brain. In a rapidly changing world, what you know is more important than what you own. Knowledge is the one thing that nobody can ever take away from you. Invest in your skills and education. Learning comes in many forms, many of which are cheap or free. The internet has put the world's biggest library right in your pocket. The key is to be curious and consistent. Invest in your brain. This can open doors to better jobs and new opportunities. It's also about financial literacy. Learning how to build your credit score is a superpower. Become a lifelong learner. Feed your brain. Nurture your curiosity. Your circumstances cannot limit your mind. Your brain is your engine for growth. Saving money when you are struggling feels impossible. It can even feel ridiculous. Save what? The $5 left after I've paid for everything? Yes, even that. We need to change how we think about saving. It's not about putting away huge amounts of money, it's about building a habit. The habit is more important than the amount. Saving is a muscle. The first time you try to lift a weight, it feels heavy and awkward, but if you do it every day, you get stronger. Saving just $1 a day proves to yourself that you can do it. It's a small victory, and those small victories build the momentum you need for bigger ones. Your first goal is not to get rich. Your first goal is to build a small emergency fund. Life is unpredictable. The car will break down, a kid will get sick, your hours at work will get cut. These small emergencies are what send people into a debt spiral. They are forced to use a credit card or take out a high-interest loan, and suddenly they are in a deeper hole. An emergency fund, even a small one of just a few $100s, is your shield. It's a buffer between you and disaster. It gives you breathing room. It turns a crisis into a simple inconvenience. That tiny pile of money is one of the most powerful stress reducers you can ever create for yourself. So, how do you find the money? We go back to our map, our budget. We look for those small leaks. Maybe it's the daily soda. Maybe it's a subscription you forgot you had. Find a small amount, any amount, and automate it. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to a separate savings account for the day after you get paid, even if it's just $10 per paycheck. When the money is moved automatically, you don't even have to think about it. You learn to live without it. This is how you trick yourself into saving. You make it effortless, out of sight, out of mind, and into your future. Once you have your emergency fund, you can start thinking bigger. You can start building your money machine. This is where you put your savings to work for you through investing. I know, investing sounds like something only rich people in suits do, but it's not. Today, you can start investing with as little as $1. You can buy a tiny piece of a successful company. Your dollar is now a tiny employee working 24/7 to make more money for you. This is the secret to building wealth. Not just working for your money, but having your money work for you. It starts small, with that $1 you decided to save instead of spend. That $1 is the first brick in your foundation of financial freedom. Sometimes budgeting isn't enough. This is where the side hustle comes in. It's about earning extra income on your own terms. Turn a skill, a passion, or spare time into cash. This extra income is fuel to build your emergency fund faster, pay down debt, or start investing. A side hustle gives you a sense of control and a second income stream, which is a huge source of security. The possibilities are everywhere. Start with something you know how to do, so you don't have to invest a lot to get started. Your goal is to make your first dollar. The beauty of a side hustle is that it diversifies your income and gives you options. It's about the freedom and resilience that money represents. So far we have talked a lot about what you can do, but here is a very important secret. You cannot do this alone, and you don't have to. Real, lasting change happens in community. It happens when we stop seeing our struggles as individual failures and start seeing them as shared challenges. When we start talking to each other, when we share our stories, something magical happens. We realize we are not alone, and in that connection, we find incredible strength. Your community is your team. So the first step in harnessing the power of community is to simply reach out, ask for help when you need it, and just as importantly, offer help when you can. You are replacing the isolation of poverty with the strength of solidarity, and that is a force that can move mountains. You need mentors and a crew. Mentors are a few steps ahead, guiding you with their experience. Your crew, peers walking the path alongside you. Mentors offer advice and open doors. Find mentors by looking for people you admire. Don't hesitate to ask for guidance. Your crew offers support and understanding. They keep you accountable. Build your crew intentionally. With mentors and crew, the journey is less lonely and more possible. Individual actions are powerful. Finding your own mentors and crew is essential. But what happens when we take that community spirit to the next level? What happens when we start working together not just to help ourselves, but to improve the entire neighborhood? This is where real systemic change begins. It's about moving from me to we. It's about recognizing that a rising tide lifts all boats. If your community is safer, has better schools, and has more local businesses, everyone benefits. Your personal journey out of poverty becomes so much easier when the environment around you is also getting healthier and more prosperous. This is the ultimate team project. This doesn't have to be some grand, complicated plan. It starts with small, local actions. Think about a community garden. It seems simple, right? But look at what it does. It provides fresh, healthy food for families, which cuts down on grocery bills. It teaches kids where food comes from. It gets neighbors talking to each other while they are watering the plants. It makes a neglected piece of land beautiful. That one small project tackles food insecurity, builds social connections, and creates community pride all at once. That is the power of collective action. Other examples could be starting a neighborhood watch program to improve safety, or organizing a skill-sharing fair where people teach each other things like basic car maintenance or how to use a computer. Another powerful community tool is pooling resources. This is an old idea that is still incredibly effective. It's called a susu, or a rotating savings club, in many cultures. A small group of people all agree to contribute a fixed amount of money into a pot every month. Each month, one member of the group gets to take the entire pot. This allows a person to get access to a large lump sum of cash without having to go to a bank or a predatory lender. They can use it to start a small business, pay for a school fee, or make a down payment on a car. It's a system built on trust and mutual support, and it is a perfect example of a community creating its own financial solutions. Ultimately, building a stronger community is about taking ownership. It's about stopping the wait for someone else to come and save you or your neighborhood. It's about realizing that the power is right there within the community itself. When people come together to identify their own problems and create their own solutions, they become unstoppable. They can go to city hall meetings and demand better services. They can support local entrepreneurs to create jobs right there in the neighborhood. They can create a culture of hope and possibility that gets passed down to the next generation. This is the long game. It's building a legacy of strength, resilience, and shared prosperity for everyone. Let's not pretend the world is a fair place. It isn't. Sometimes you don't get the job because of the color of your skin, your accent, your gender, or where your family comes from. This is discrimination, a giant, invisible barrier. Protect your spirit. Discrimination is designed to make you doubt your worth. Don't let it. Find your crew, the people who remind you of your strength and brilliance. Next, be strategic. You have to be twice as good and document everything. Finally, know your rights and be willing to fight. Sometimes you have to stand up and say, "This is not right." You are fighting for everyone who comes after you. A criminal record can feel like a life sentence, even after the real one is served. It follows you everywhere, haunting job and housing applications. Own your story with radical honesty. Craft a narrative of who you were, what you learned, and who you are today. Seek out fair chance employers and nonprofits that believe in second chances. Focus on what you can control. Be reliable, hardworking, and explore entrepreneurship to bypass barriers. Your future is not defined by your past mistakes. The scarcity trap is a mental fog that affects your ability to think clearly, shortening your vision. It's a biological response where your brain is in survival mode, hijacking rational decisions. Escape it by creating moments of calm, like meditation or a walk in the park. Simplify decisions, automate savings, and bill payments to free up mental energy. Break the cycle by celebrating small wins. Sticking to your budget? That's a win. This builds momentum and self-belief, the ultimate weapons for escaping the scarcity trap. Let me tell you a story about Jolene. A single mother, she worked a cleaning job that barely covered rent. Every month was a struggle, but Jolene had a gift. She could bake. Her cakes were legendary in her family. A neighbor tasted one of her cakes and asked Jolene to bake one for her daughter's birthday. She said yes, that cake had value. She posted it on social media. Suddenly, she had a tiny side hustle. She took a free online workshop about social media for business. She created a Facebook page for her unofficial business. She started delivering to nearby offices. Today, Jolene owns a small bakery. She is no longer worried about rent. She escaped poverty with a skill she already had, a little courage and steady work. You don't need everything to start. Just start with what you have. Now let's look at a bigger story. A story not just about one person, but about a whole community that decided to fight back together. There was a neighborhood in a big city that had been forgotten. The houses were run down. Businesses had closed. The biggest landlord in the area was a company from out of state that didn't care about the people living there. They just raised the rent every year, pushing families out who had lived there for generations. The people felt powerless. They were watching their community being sold off piece by piece, and they felt like there was nothing they could do. They were isolated in their individual struggles against the same giant force. Then, a few community elders decided to do something. They started talking. They went door to door, not with a petition, but just to listen. They organized small meetings in a church basement. At first, only a few people came. They shared their fears, their anger, and their feelings of hopelessness, but as they talked, they realized they all wanted the same thing: to save their home. They weren't just renters in a building, they were a community. They decided to form a tenants association. This simple act of getting organized was the first step. It gave them a collective voice. They were no longer just a bunch of separate, quiet voices, they were a choir. Their first victory was small. They worked together to negotiate with the landlord and managed to stop the next rent increase. This win was huge for their morale. It showed them that they had power when they stood together. But they didn't stop there. They got ambitious. They learned about a model called a community land trust. The idea was to buy the buildings themselves. It sounded impossible. Where would they get the money? They reached out to local nonprofits, they learned how to write grant proposals, and they started a community fundraising campaign. Everyone gave what they could, $10, $50, whatever they had. They were pooling their resources, just like in those savings clubs. It took years of hard work, of meetings, of bake sales, and of fighting, but they did it. They bought their first building, and then another. Today, that community land trust owns a significant portion of the neighborhood. The housing is affordable, and it will stay that way forever because the community owns it. They make decisions together about repairs, about shared spaces, and about the future of their home. They didn't just escape the cycle of rising rents and displacement, they took back control. This story shows us the incredible power we have when we stop thinking me and start thinking we. It proves that even the biggest giants can be defeated when a community decides to fight for its own future, together. We have walked a long road together through this essay. We started by looking at the giant, scary canyon of the wealth gap. We looked at the invisible walls, the cycles of scarcity, and the weight of history that hold people back. It's a heavy story. It's easy to feel small when faced with such enormous challenges. But then, we started to build a bridge. We talked about real, practical steps. We talked about turning your budget into a map, your brain into your greatest asset, your savings into a shield, and your side hustle into a source of freedom. We saw that you do not have to do this alone, that there is incredible power in finding your mentors, your crew, and in building a stronger community. The path is not easy, but it is there. The stories of Jolene and the community that bought back its neighborhood are not fairy tales. They are proof. They are evidence that change is possible. They show us that you can start with nothing more than a skill in your hands and a fire in your heart. They show us that when people unite, they can achieve what seems impossible. These are not stories about exceptional people. They are stories about ordinary people who decided to take extraordinary action. They chose hope over despair. They chose action over apathy. They chose to write a new story for themselves and for their children. Their journey is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and a blueprint for the change we all want to see. So now, the question is not what can be done. The question is, what will you do? This essay is not just information, it is an invitation. It is a call to action. It is a challenge to you right now to take one small step, just one. Maybe it's tracking your spending for one day. Maybe it's watching one YouTube video to learn a new skill. Maybe it's reaching out to one neighbor just to say hello. Do not be paralyzed by the size of the mountain. Focus on the very next step in front of you. That is how every great journey begins. That is how every bridge is built. One single, deliberate, hopeful step forward. The future is not something that just happens to us. It is something we build. The power to change your life and your community does not belong to politicians or billionaires. It belongs to you. It is in your hands, in your ideas, in your hard work, and in your connections with others. The journey out of poverty is the ultimate act of rebellion against a system that says you cannot win. So prove it wrong. Be the hero of your own story. Start today. Start now. Build your bridge, find your team, and walk toward the future you deserve. It is waiting for you.